Welcome to Books and Whatever Else, and I'm your host, Asher Dark, and today our special guest is Chuck Nest. How you
Howdy.
doing today?
I'm doing all right. Been
Yeah,
busy, running
yeah,
around, doing shit. But I'm all right.
busy day.
Oh yeah. It's always about the grind. Don't usually ever stop. I'm an
Yeah.
exhausted mess most of the time.
Hey, I normally call myself chaos, but like it's a good chaos.
There
I
is a
get my ducks
difference.
in a row very chaotically, but it works for
Yeah. No, I sometimes like it's like Hunter S. Thompson said, sex, drugs, and violence don't work for everybody, but it works for me.
me. All right, I like to get into questions quickly. What inspired you to write, and what inspired you to write in this genre? Was it a person, a book, or just something you kind of always done?
Well, bear with me here.
Mm-hmm.
There's two parts to this answer. When I've been writing stories and shit since I was a kid. Um, I got banned from writing and drawing stuff in first grade because I was always writing horror and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. I guess it's the fact that I've always been a big movie guy, and I always loved to read as a kid. And the first real influence was the fact of I got into horror movies, and then I got into Goosebumps. That's when Goosebumps first started, and
Yes,
they were
me
popping up
too.
at book fair and stuff. And I would write like me and my buddy John used to sit like while everybody else was playing tag and shit. Um, we were on the sidelines like writing stories in our little notebooks. We would get these notebooks from the school,
Mhm.
and they're like $2 or whatever. And whatever the cover was, I'd make that book was gonna be about this. You know, it's like the cover had like a biker on it, so it was about a bike group or some shit that usually ended up being killed or something. Um, and so like I've always written stories and I've always done something like that. My mom actually has my first horror story that I wrote in kindergarten. First, maybe it was the first time I was a first grader. No, wait. No,
Okay.
no. I was a kindergarten twice. I was in first grade once. There we go. Um, but no, because that my mom has that first story. It was written on that old school kid paper that has the big lines in it, the big gaps, you
Mhm.
know. And it was 2 pages, and it was just about how a rat was eating people's faces.
That's
And
pretty cool, though.
yeah, the second, the more recent answer to your question, um, was I would have to say Edward Lee. Well, okay, going back, God, I do this a lot. So back when I was getting into Goosebumps and show like that, it was R.L. Stein, and then it was Stephen King, and then it was Clive Barker, and then Poppy Z. Bright, and then Brian. I can never Martin, Billy. What does he
Billy
go by?
Martin. Billy
Okay,
Martin. Mhm.
because I mean no
I love me
disrespect.
some Billy.
I always knew Poppy Z. Bright because Lost Souls and Drawn Blood were always two of my favorites, and Wormwood. Um, but going on, moving on.
Also, is my number
Edward,
one favorite book ever.
I know it is. I like that actually. It's because for the longest time that book didn't I didn't really hear about it much. You know, I had a
Mhm.
friend of mine who that John that I was telling you about. He went to Dragon Con in Georgia year like when we were kids, and he was actually in an elevator with him, and somebody else, somebody from Guar. They were all in an elevator, and he was just a little guy, but whatever. But in recent times, Edward Lee was the reason why I got back into reading there for a long time. I wrote House of Flesh, which is sitting behind you, like 8 years ago, and that was just me seeing. I had written some other stuff with some other people and stuff before then, and I never thought that would ever see the light of day. Um, but after that, I kind of took a whole gap. Um, because the whole public self-publishing thing on Amazon or whatever, every time I looked at it, it gave me a headache. So I just was like, whatever, okay, maybe this isn't, you know. And then I had a friend of mine tell me, hey, you need to read Edward Lee. You and him have very similar, you know, styles.
Mhm.
And he's like, he's right up your alley. And so I was like, all right, I'll check it out one day. Because he was telling me about The Black Train, which is a great book. And he's like, dude, you've got to read this. But the first book I got from Edward Lee was City Infernal. A buddy of mine who owned a little thrift shop or whatever he had, and he's like, dude, here. I started reading it. I really enjoyed it. I moved, got lost, like it was a bunch of boxes, couldn't find it. Found it later on after I got into my whole Edward Lee like obsession. Um, and yeah, like it's kind of I didn't know that there was a splatterpunk community. I knew there was a hardcore horror community.
Me
Um,
either.
it's just one of those things, man, where you start thanks to the internet and shit, and Wikipedia and all that, you start finding out like, oh, there's a lot of these authors that I like that are kind of in that, that same vein. I mean, Clive Barker. I mean, I've been reading him since third, fourth grade. And I mean, he's kind of like, one of the forefathers of really extreme uh storytelling, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah,
So but I, so I didn't know.
I didn't know Lost Souls or Exquisite Corpse was considered like, splatter extreme. And like that was something that, I've been reading 20 years, like some
Right.
of my favorite books. And I just recently found like the genre like a year ago. I was like, oh, okay, that's what I've been reading.
Yeah. It's weird because I mean, like I said, hardcore horror is always I've always seen it as like hardcore horror. It's extreme, it's splatterpunk, all it's everything.
Mhm.
Um, but when finally, groups and all that shit, I guess is about a year or two ago, whenever, God, was it last year when Thirsty came out? I can't fucking remember. Yeah, my timeline sucks with just about everything.
Mine does too.
Um, but it's the weed.
I just said that. Yep.
But uh, yeah, no, yeah, when it comes down to like Exquisite Corpse you're talking about,
Mhm.
like I have the comic book of that. I've never read the book. I want to read it, but apparently it's like when I found out that it was in like the top like 20 greatest like extreme splatterpunk whatever shit. I was like, oh, all right, well, fuck, that's cool that Bright's on there. All right, cool, and I started seeing these different authors that I've been reading forever, and I was like, okay. And Edward Lee was the one where I went, okay, this is the format. This is
Yeah.
this is where it's okay,
Mhm.
because writing House of Flesh I was just trying. That was the first time that I was like, okay, I'm just going to write whatever's in my head. And I'm not going to back away.
Yeah.
And, and so I was like, I don't know who would want this, who'd put this out, blah, blah. And come to find out, there's a whole bunch of fucking people that really love this shit. And I'm like, cool, I'm not alone. So, it's
My
nice to
mom
have
and my
a home
aunts.
for my stuff, a home for my disgust.
Yeah, my mama and my aunts, they read all my books and they eat them up. They love them. They're like, give me more stuff. And with Lost Souls, that was the reason my first book had to be a vampire book. And I found Billy on Facebook and I friend requested him. And when he accepted, I cried. I had a moment. I was like, I know he probably don't know who the fuck I am, but he was just like, yeah, let's, you know, accept. And I just was, I just had
Well,
like a moment.
that's how you have to do things. I mean, it's a whole lot easier to reach out to authors when it comes down to people in the limelight of any
Mhm.
of any kind. Because for the most part, everybody's pretty helpful.
Yeah.
Usually some people are dicks, but I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, Stuart uh, was he was the one that I got into the splatterpunk groups. Saw his name all over the place, and I was like, I'm just gonna message this dude. He's in Kentucky, just like I am. And we kind of hit it off pretty quick, and he really liked my ideas about things, and he was
Hmm.
really supportive of it, man. He
He
still is.
really is. He really
Yeah,
is. He's a good guy. Like he
he is.
he doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause he just does like he a bunch of behind the scenes goodness that nobody really sees, but he's actually like this great person that's just there and willing to help and mentor like all these people, and
Yeah,
just nice. And Jason, I love me some Jason.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say like him and Jason both like they've been very helpful with everything. I mean, if it wasn't for Stuart and if it wasn't for Jason, I mean, um, you know the whole there's a whole thing about Thirsty and House of Flesh. House of Flesh was supposed to be first, and Thirsty became the first one.
Mhm.
And there's like a whole thing with that, and there was a few people who kind of saved me from that one. Yeah, Thirsty. The book that the story is 119 pages, not 57 if you bought it on if you got it online. That was a recent debacle, which is funny because it almost has been for those that know don't for those that aren't aware. There for a minute, I think it's fixed now, but there for a minute, if you went on and you were trying to read Thirsty, you were only getting not even half of it. And everybody, like, I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on with the reviews. Like, some people were like, "Oh man, this is awesome," blah blah, and then other people were like, "I didn't get the ending. It just drops off, and it just, you know." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, because the ending of Thirsty is one of my favorite endings because not only it's very suspenseful the way I wrote it, I think, but it's also kind of hot. Uh, got me all hot and bothered when I was writing it. And it's just it's a really good ending, and it actually kind of shows you into what's going to happen next whenever I get to writing the sequel to it. So yeah, so I guess that's been taken care of now. But the cool thing is there's a reassurance of people who like I'm noticing that you know, people were buying it again. They're wanting to see what it's all about. You know, like, oh, well, I missed this shit. Okay, and I would not have known. I would not have known that it was fucked up, except somebody had a reviewer had done a video, and I was like, oh, 57 pages. What the fuck is that?
Where's the rest of my book at?
Yeah, it threw me off, and it ended up being like a almost a week long fucking battle trying to figure out everything, but it got figured out. Yeah, there's the
So what
debacle.
about some upcoming projects? You got anything you can talk about that you're excited about?
Yeah, why not? Um, yeah, I well, okay, on top of countless anthologies that I've been doing stuff for,
Mhm.
finally getting to a point where I can not stress because I mean writing like 8 stories at once kind of made my head want to explode. So I've been
Mhm.
trying to limit what I'm working on,
Mhm.
how I do things. You know, I have my whole writing rituals and whatnot, and but I a couple months ago I started writing a book that um, was very unexpected, but went on a trip with one of my buddies to go see another friend of ours, and ideas kept pouring. They just kept, you know, coming out of my head. All right.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because this is okay. So the next book that's coming out, and there will be a cover. The cover looks amazing. I think you might have already seen it. I posted in our group maybe a while back.
Mhm.
Um, but whenever I do the official reveal, I think everyone's gonna love it because it's one of my favorite covers so far. Um, Christy Aldridge, right?
I love her. I
Yeah,
love her.
yeah, she's great. But the book title is called Lot Lizard Stew, and it's not it's not your typical. It's not just about a raving maniac truck driver. It's not it's not just depravity. There's a little bit more to it. It's like if you took you know, Henry the portrait of a serial killer or maniac or something like that, and then mixed it in with like some Lovecraftian, you know, mystery, if you will, creatures,
That sounds
double.
awesome.
It, there's a couple of well, I mean, there's a couple alligators that have 2 heads, and yeah, but it's something I've been very proud of, and I'm about 4 or 5 chapters away from being done.
That's
Um, and I'm really hoping to get it out very soon. Um, but I think people are really gonna enjoy it.
Mhm.
I think that I did a really good job on this shit. I've lost a lot of sleep. I don't really get much sleep anyway. Um, that's how I know that a project's good is when I can't sleep because I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
I have to be careful when I'm driving because I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
Um, when I'm
It's
hanging
just
out with
flowing.
people, yeah, like it's when I'm really, some of these stories that I've done with some of these anthologies and shit. I mean, I love every single one of them, but the funny thing is, though, a couple of them I feel like I rushed and I didn't think they were going to be that great. And come to find out, people were like, "Oh man, this story was blah blah blah, was great," and I was like, "Thank you," you know.
The
Um,
Peckerhook Princess, ain't that what it's called? I
that's the one
love
that's
that.
in
That shit
Grotesque.
was to me, and I'm in the Modern Grotesque anthology, and I thought that was my favorite one. Like that was my favorite one, hands down. It was just wild, and I find that like the wilder the stuff, the more fun it is to write it. You
Hmm.
have like way more fun with the crazy stuff, or at least I
Well,
do.
well, see, that's the thing that's one thing that kind of bugs me is the fact that there's a lot of people that will regurgitate the same storyline, the
Mhm.
same B&E story. I'm not calling any names out, but there's a lot of people that want to just keep doing the same thing that somebody else already did. It's like, you know what? Everywhere you look, there's horror. I can make just about anything horror. I can turn my couch over here. I can write a story about something disgustingly bad happening.
Mhm.
You can. It doesn't have to be. There's influence all around.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
if you're not sure what to write, watch the news.
Mhm.
Go on
Mhm.
YouTube. Watch body cam footage of like
Go
cops
sit
being
on your
shitheads.
porch.
Yeah, watch people. You know,
Mhm.
um, and I just think there's too much out there, and there's not enough originality. There's a lot. Because we've all we're all influenced by these fucked up movies and that involve kidnapping and videos, snuff films and stuff. There's it's in Lot Lizard. There is a whole snuff thing in there too. It's not a big part of it, but it's in there too. It's certain little tropes within the extreme world that okay, all right, we have to do that one. We have to mention this one, and that's fine. But there has been a lot of regurgitation, a lot of the
Yeah.
same old shit. And
Yeah.
it's like, come on, it's like I read some shit and I'm like, man, you're a good writer. Why are you writing this shit? Come on, where's the story? That's another problem. Is it where's the
I
story?
really I
You
really
know?
enjoy character development along with like my gore and extreme and stuff. To me, that's what makes a book better is like when you're doing all this, but you're also got a good plot and a good character development.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, there's some stories like um the story I did in Splatology, which was uh fuck Dead Dick's Fuckhole Emporium or whatever. It was supposed to be just nothing but disgusting. And it's one of the grossest stories I've ever written. I've literally like when
I
writing
like
it, I wanted to puke. Like there's a certain scene in it that has to do with
I know what you're
tampons,
talking about.
and it just about ended me. Like
Mhm.
I was over here on my laptop going, "Ugh, ugh," like it was bad, but I was like, I've got to keep it. So it's if you go into it, it's like, okay, be disgusting. Well, I can be disgusting. You know what I mean? I can give you just straight disgust, but I prefer, you know, uh, a good story with all that horrible shit, just kind of splattered all around through it. No pun intended.
Yeah, I loved yours in there. Stuart's story surprised me. And that one, the ending surprised me. Um, Jason, he does. I eat up anything that Jason writes. Dan Satanic Bill, that motherfucker got something of that Satanic Bill. I'm obsessed. I got on his ass about write another one, write another one, write another one. Like
Mm-hmm.
those, that was a really good anthology. There were like some bangers in it, some really
Oh
good bangers.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Peckerhook Princess in Grotesque.
Mhm.
Funny thing about that is actually, do you know, have you read Sludge yet?
The
The
first one,
anthology, me and Jason, and yeah,
yeah.
have you read that one?
Hmm.
Okay, so You know the
It's
story of
been, I
Dickworm in
read
there?
that. Oh,
Okay.
it's been
Peckerhook
months.
Princess. Well, Peckerhook Princess it's a Dickworm story. It's a Western Dickworm story.
Hmm.
Um, which I've got like wait till Sludge 2 comes out. Um, I plan on dickworms are going to be there's going to be stories that involve dickworms like just splashing up and just wherever I can throw them in anthologies. That's my whole thing now. The dickworm story is those are my nods to Edward Lee. Those are my like, hey,
That's
so
cool.
and eventually I will collect every dickworm related story that I have, and I will put it in one big, a big book of Dickworm. And it will be
Like a short story of Dick Worm short stories.
right. Oh, it's gonna, yeah. Like I've got plans.
You gotta have somebody like
Jason
illustrate
is
that
really
cover
looking
and
forward to me doing that. I've got some ideas, but yeah, no, those are just funny. See, like that's the thing about it is like, you know, sometimes like I like to be dark and brooding or whatever, but a lot of the times I'm funny. A lot of my stuff cracks me up. Dickworm cracks me up. I tried reading that. I tried just to see, just because everybody keeps telling me that I've got a good voice and that I should,
you should
read
do. Yep.
stories and whatever. I have a problem with stumbling over words, so that's why I haven't done it yet. But I was like, why not? I'll try. So I tried to read that. I couldn't stop laughing. I got to a pink puckered butthole and I lost it. And I couldn't. I just like fuck it. So I think it's important to have humor in there. But yeah, I
I
figured
do
you
too.
mentioned that, and I was like, well, make sure you check out the other dickworm related stories. Yeah,
Hmm.
those are always fun. It's kind of like if I've been asked to do an anthology and I agree to do it, and I don't know where to go, then I
Yeah.
just go dickworm. Like what's happening in this version of dickworm? What are these things doing now? Because there's you could do so much and it just gets worse.
Mhm. So what would be your number, like, let's say like your favorite book ever of like by another author, like maybe like your number one? I know sometimes it's really hard to pick like number one.
I can give you five. Um, Clive Barker, Hellbound Heart. It's a toss up between the Books of Blood. Any um, Edward Lee's. I'm a big fan of them, which horror. Um, Slither, Flesh Gothic. I can't even. You know what? Okay, so fuck that. Okay, I suck at this. His after thing was like, I would say that I would have to throw in my number one book because I think it's the scariest book that Stephen King's ever written, and it's one of my favorite movies, and it's a movie I can't watch all the time, for emotional fucking parent reasons. Pet Cemetery. Um, I think that's a book that I've read twice in my life. I
I
read
love
it.
that book.
I read it first and third grade, and that wasn't even the first Stephen King book I read. But I read it in third grade. Read it again as an adult and still had the same feeling. But it's like that movie I remember as a kid, that movie always, kind of even now it sends chills. It's a
It
very everything
does.
about
It
it. And
does.
the book is even better because you can see once you've seen the movie and you read the book, you have the characters already in your head. It's that
Hmm.
damn road, killed your boy, you know. Um,
You do that pretty well.
it's really pathetic how many years I've been doing that voice. Believe me. But yeah, Pet Cemetery probably because I just it's just there's everything about that book. I mean, the original cover of it, the original paperback. It's like the reddish kind of gritty, and it has the cat. It has church in the background, and you have like all the other little stuff going on. Something about it. It's just everything about it. It's just like I got chills right now thinking about it. It's just such a great fucking book, and he almost
Yes,
didn't
it
put that.
really is.
Stephen King almost didn't even put that one out because it was too scary.
Hmm.
Could you imagine that? A world without Pet Cemetery? No, thank you.
No, it would have been a sucky ass world.
I agree. I agree.
So, do you have any other talents? Well, I know you're in a band.
Hmm.
And what about any like weird things about you?
Honey, my
Like,
name's Chuck Nasty. There's a lot of weird things about me.
I don't drink anything that doesn't have lids. Stuart can't take a shower with the toilet
That
lid
toilet
seat
seat up.
up.
Yeah.
Any kind of
Um,
quirks like that?
you're talking to somebody who's got so many quirks.
Mhm.
I was kind of thinking about this earlier, trying to because I knew you were going to ask this. So I don't, I don't like being my back turned to an open space. Um, that freaks me out. I don't like this right here. Like this is my writing area, and this is a window. And at night, I will open it up and whatever. And this is actually not how I usually have my setup, but it's a different thing I was kind of trying. And even that freaks me out.
Mhm.
Um, I won't go too much into it, but there was a part of my life where I looked over my shoulder an awful lot. Um, and so like I don't like wide open spaces that are behind me. Like
Mhm.
I something else. I don't like to be the first into a place I've never been before. Like if you're with a group of people and someone's like, "Oh, I'll open the door," it's like, no, you first.
Mhm. Oh
Which is
no,
why
me neither.
all my friends make sure to hold the door open for me first so I can go in first because they know that I hate that, you know. Uh,
Yeah,
there's man,
I don't
I
want to
feel
go.
like I'm not giving you I feel like I'm not giving you good enough. I'm trying to think. I
Mhm.
can't say some things. I really, because like the things that because the things that keep popping in my mind are all sexual,
I
things
mean,
that
mine
annoy
was
me.
lame. Mine was literally just lids.
Lids.
Yeah. It's like the little girl
I,
on signs who leaves the little water cups everywhere because the dust particles have gotten in her drink, but she ends up saving her fucking family from aliens because of the water. So
right.
I can't leave
Yeah.
anything open like that. Well, let's
I'm
talk about
terrified
your
of
band.
heights. Yeah. Let's.
Yeah.
Um,
So how long
Bastard
you been
Sons of a
doing that?
Geoscope. We've been a band. I've been playing music since I was 15.
Mhm.
Well, I've been playing in bands since I was 15. I've been playing music since I was 10, but I didn't really start getting good until I was like in the 20s. Um, but yeah, we've been a band for over 10 years. Probably I think we're going like on 13 or 14 years at this point. We're a two piece. We started out in another band years ago together. There was five people, and then I got kicked out of that band. Um, I was kind of a bad place in my life, and I wasn't paying attention like I should. Plus,
Mhm.
minus one person, there was a bunch of drug addicts and alcoholics in the band, and the one person that wasn't is who I'm in a band with now. If that says anything, you know. But after that happened, I went off and started another band, and he had two bands, and we didn't talk for a minute. We weren't really that cool for a minute. I was pretty bitter over being kicked out, and then his band's disbanded. My band went to shit. So, um, we're like, let's jam. So, we got together, and I started playing drums more, um, and just, like I play drums and do the main vocals. We both do vocals, but I'm the one that does the
Yeah,
majority of it. But we're a two piece, but we sound like a four piece or a five piece. We're pretty fucking loud.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And
It's
you do
kind of
live shows and stuff. And I mean, of
mhm.
course, yeah, I know you do, but
Not as much as most bands. We don't do things the way other bands do.
mhm.
Where we both got kids, and
Yeah,
he works he works for a government job, and so it's like there's not really we've never gone on tour. Um, we've put out stuff, and we've played mainly in Kentucky, but we've also played in Indiana, and we just played in Ohio for our first time on Friday, which went really well. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, we
that's
we
awesome.
we put out stuff. We do have a new album get ready to come out. Um, we're still in the process of getting it all uh, mastered and all that shit, and
Mhm.
the final mixes and all that. Really proud of it. So when it comes out, um, I'm gonna make sure let everybody in our little group hear it. Because even if you don't
Yeah,
want to hear it, I'm
definitely.
still going to make you listen to
I'm
it.
definitely going to hear. You know?
But
I like that you play the drums. I've always been fascinated with drums. I just never learned it. I just picked up a guitar when I was 14, and that was my instrument of choice ever since.
no, I feel that. No, I started out on guitar when I was a kid. And the funny thing is, actually, quick little backstory. I started out on guitar, and I was actually a guinea pig, and that's how I got the fucking money for it. I had mono real bad a couple of times, like flared up real bad when I was a kid, and they were like, hey, we want to do some tests. We want to try some medicine, see if it works for them. Here's a whole bunch of money. Now, of course, my parents got most of the money, but they let me, the first time I went, I was able to have enough to get my first acoustic. And then the second time, couple of years later, I got my first electric, and my stepdad came in the picture. Um, he plays bass, so I started playing bass. And somewhere around there, I was a drummer for a punk band in early on in school called Jurassic Monkeys,
Oh my
where
God, Jurassic
I
Monkeys.
was supposed to play drums, but I ended up playing guitar more than anything. Um, but yeah, I never thought I never really considered myself a drummer until like 4 or 5 years ago. If that says anything. I mean, I've definitely improved. I've definitely gotten really good, but enough. I'm still, you always are improving, with no matter what your craft is. But if it's a musical instrument, if I go to somebody's house, I'm gonna fuck with it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Eh,
Well,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I enjoyed having you on. It was kind of relaxing. We kind of just, the more
Yeah.
I do this, the less nervous I am. And then when I have friends like you on, like it makes it like,
Oh yeah.
easier. Just
Well,
feel
you're doing
like
a
we're
great
just
job.
fucking hanging out and shit.
Yeah. Well, I also do a few podcasts.
Yeah.
So I know how it goes.
Mhm.
I have a couple audio podcasts, Graveyard Talk and Nasty Nation, which they've been kind of paused for a while, but you can go on Spotify and check out all those. And then the one I do on Tuesdays is Video Store Clerks.
Mhm.
It's on YouTube and Facebook. Um, and we talk about movies and shit on there too. So, but no, you're doing a great job with this. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad we were able to do this. I wish it wasn't so short. I feel like it was too short of a time.
Yeah.
You know,
I got my House of the Dragon coming on in like 7 minutes.
I feel you. I feel
We
you.
waited like 2 years for season 2 to come out.
Well, that's what is that? What is it? It's an offshoot from another thing, right?
Game of Thrones. Yep.
Okay, yeah, yeah. See, I never watched Game of Thrones.
I'm
So
obsessed. I'm a nerd. I love that. Game of Thrones, what is it, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, all that shit. I'm just nerd.
I think it's cool, and I think it's pretty badass from the little clips and stuff I've seen. But it's like I'm not like it's not. I'm not really big on dragons and stuff like that. But I think it's cool for what it is and all that stuff. Like usually, like give me a chainsaw, not a sword. Give me a chainsaw.
Well, I appreciate you coming and thank everybody for watching us. And we'll see you. When's my next show? Thursday at 2.
Hell yeah.
Stop recording.